I mean, the last time I saw you, I hadn't seen Joker, but it was such a lovely experience because we were at the Royal Albert Hall and we'd just seen a piece of your music from Tar played in the gorgeous venue with that orchestra. It was so
It
great,
was
Hilda.
amazing. Yeah,
It's so
it
great.
was so beautiful.
Yeah, thanks for your time for literally allowing us to jump on you at the end of that as well. That was not planned, but we were like, she's here.
Yeah, no, it's just so cool that we were both there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Since then, I've seen Joker, and I mean, wow, you know how much I just loved the first film and the breath of fresh air it was, both in terms of the experience as a film fan, but how intrinsic the music was to everything really within that film. It really catapulted Joaquin into how he portrayed that character so much so. Um, Congratulations. I mean, the way that the music is weaved into this so cleverly, and your particular side of music, how it kind of it's constantly kind of, it's almost like the character trying to kind of fight through kind of thing in a way, going, it's so clever. It's so clever. But let's go back. When did you know there was going to be a sequel, and when did you know that you were going to be, you're going to be part of it again?
Yeah, so I think the first time that we had discussed as a potential sequel was I think it was the night before the premiere of the first film in Venice, and it was quite funny because it was there was of course like when you have a I think when you're working into this universe like the DC universe or the Marvel universe, I mean there tend to be sequels basically of these type of franchises, but Joker I guess sits a little bit outside of those franchises, and or it's
Mm.
it's in it, but it's also kind of like maybe it's a bit of an outsider I guess in the so we weren't totally sure if there was going to be a sequel or not. But the first conversation we had about it, well, at least that included me, was we were having we were just meeting for a drink before the premiere, and so I was meeting with Todd and Joaquin in Venice, and I had had this dream before, and I actually had totally forgotten about this dream until I started. Actually, after we made this film, so I'm not saying that this dream was the catalyst for this sequel being made in the way it was, but I remembered it after the fact because I had this dream, and I said to them, yeah, I just dreamt that we were doing another Joker, and there was this scene in a swimming pool with lots of different colorful umbrellas, and there was like this kind of dance scene. and, and I kid you not, I had completely forgotten about this, and I'm expecting Joaquin and Todd to have also completely forgotten about this. um, until after the fact, because then it turns out that Joaquin also had the dream that
Yeah.
this film was being remade, but with all these songs, So he basically, so it was almost like this sequel just was begging to be. Packing to be this have at least
Wow.
have these like colorful umbrellas in my subconscious, and I guess my kids also. So it was like this very very bizarre turn of events, But so I guess yeah, we that this idea of a sequel was there somewhere in the subconscious, and then yeah, it
That's
took on this
amazing.
life. Yeah,
And the fact the umbrellas are in the film as
I
well. It's
know.
like that's like
I know. It was like so bizarre because it's yeah, it's like not the obvious choice to make, I think, for a sequel. like this, but
It's
something was kind of just pulling us, in that direction, for better or for worse.
but it had to be, didn't it? It had to be ballsy. It had to be brave. It had to be different. It had to kind of just, kind of be out there really, because there's no way that the sequel to this was going to be just a continuation of what we saw in that first film. It had to be, I don't know, it had to just push boundaries, or just because that first film, like you say, to be part of that DC world, but to not be part of it really was just, but it resonated so well with film fans as well as, kind of contemporaries and things like that as well. When they started having that conversation with you though about, I mean, taking your dream and Joaquin's dream, forward to the point where music was going to feature in the way that it does within the film. What then was your kind of initial thoughts around that, and kind of working out, and how did you, yeah, what was your reaction, just as a kind of first introduction to what they were thinking? Or did you get a script immediately?
Well, I got a script pretty early on, yeah, and I when this when this conversation first started, I have to admit I was, quite terrified of this idea, because I just knew that I mean, I think that they basically, that they really wanted music to be at the center of the film. And I think that the score, of course, was a big influence on that decision, because I think that, well, for all of us, it was a very different way of working with the score and
Mm.
the film, like we did in the first film. Like, the score was such a big influence on the character development, and on the shooting, and on the actual scenes that were being shot. It was such a big part of that process, and I think for all of us, it was just such a beautiful experience, and we all loved working in that way so much. So, and I think that in that first film, the songs are also quite important to the character, to both Joker and Arthur Flack, and his, I think his way of trying to connect to the world
Yeah.
was very much through the songs in the first film. And as you say, I think it was really important to, or it felt like no one wanted to make the same film again.
Yeah.
That was very clear, and I think since we had these strong musical connections, it felt to them like a, almost like the logical thing to do, to have music be such a center piece, or center storytelling device of the second film. And yeah, I think for me it was both kind of exciting and terrifying, because these types of songs are
That's
not
how
really.
Todd likes it.
Yeah, exactly. Never want to shy away from totally terrifying you in the creative process, and I guess that's also what he was aiming for. I think he was just trying to kind of pull the rug underneath all of us.
Yeah.
And I guess that's also what I'm drawn to in
Mm.
the projects that I do, is I try to learn something new in every project, or I try to explore something that I haven't explored before. And I certainly hadn't explored working into this sort of genre of music before. I've of course worked a lot, with in the kind of pop realm, and experimental music realm and the classical realm, but these type of songs I was not really super familiar or comfortable working
Mm.
into. And also the I think the kind of the tricky thing was also just finding the line between where the songs lived and where the score lives, because these are kind of different devices
Yeah.
in these stories. The score is, in the first film, was obviously kind of focusing on his inner world, and we had a very strong sound world for that
Mm.
purpose. Like, we had already established this very, very distinct world that we were in, and the songs were more like a kind of outward reach, and so finding the balance between where the score was being true to that first film, and kind of continuing that sound, and that world, but connecting it into the songs was kind of, that was, I guess, the
It's
trickiest part, and like,
so
the
amazingly
massive
done.
undertaking.
It's so amazingly done though, and weirdly it's that kind of thing where, because we've got a connection to that beautiful, really kind of, you know, exploration, like you say, of the inner kind of emotions of the character from the first film. We have a connection with those sounds and that music and how it makes us feel. So then when we have this different type of music coming in, which is, for me, it's his way of, the only way that he can kind of communicate really is through this sort of song and dance sort of thing. But weirdly then, when your score comes back in the incredible way that it sort of, it blends and appears and kind of almost transforms, it's like, it's, yeah, it makes you feel comfortable weirdly because it's there again,
Oh,
if that
that's
makes sense.
great. Oh, that's nice to hear. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we definitely, we spent a lot of time just trying different ways of doing that. Like, it was a lot of just trial and error, and just trying different ways of approaching it, and different orchestrations, and so I don't know how many versions of each song were were arranged, and so many different arrangers, and like so many people involved, and just
Yeah.
musicians, obviously, and so each song went through, I don't know how many, different
Wow.
versions, and how many different versions of scores of, like, reaching into the sounds, and I didn't do the arrangements myself, but I had kind of my hand
Yeah.
in these connective tissues, a lot. So
Yeah.
so it was a very interesting process, for sure.
There's almost, because there's almost four relationships going on. There's Joker and uh, Harley Quinn. There's Lee and Arthur. There's Joker and Lee, and there's Arthur and Harley Quinn. There's almost these kind of sort of four double acts almost kind of going on and sort of working out I found that in itself kind of really clever to think about, in terms of, it's not just, that sort of fight that he has between Joker and Arthur, and who he is when, and I love how through the music as well, you almost feel like Arthur's theme is almost trying to find its place in the film, like the character almost. Do you know what I mean? Between reality and fantasy, in that it's kind of almost like, no, I'm coming through, I'm here, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm Arthur. No, I'm Joker. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. No, I think that's a fascinating way to put it. Yeah, it's a great.
Yeah. Um, I also love how you love, part of one of the many things that you do is creating, new instruments and working on that, and I was so fascinated to read about the string prison and the trench cello, and I wondered if you can talk a little bit about that and how you came up with that idea and what you feel it adds to what you end up creating or what it gave you or inspired you by?
Yeah, yeah. No, it was quite that. It was quite that dramatic turn of events when I was about to record for the film, the original session, and I had kind of planned on just continuing with the Halldorfon, which was the main the main character of musical character of the score for the first film, and I had set up this whole session, and of course, like when you're working on films, you have pretty tight deadlines, so everything was very like tightly squeezed in. Like, okay, we record this here, and then we go forward with this. So there's not really a lot of space for accidents in the process. But so the week before the recording session, I had a concert in London, and I'd just been changing studios and been moving around a lot and been working out of like lots of different places. And as I come back, I didn't have time to bring my instrument to the studio that I would normally bring it to. So I come home from the concert, and I think, okay, I'll just leave it in the basement for like overnight, just one night before I can go take it somewhere else. And this is behind like two locked security doors, and it's really super secure. We've never has anything happened in that basement before. And that night, that literal night, we had a break-in into the basement. And one thing out of the multiple storage spaces in that basement, one thing was taken, and that was my instrument.
No.
It was just like this freak situation that happened. And I first of all think like, good lord, I mean, kudos to you for even like attempting to steal this instrument, because it's a total drag to schlep around.
Yeah, also kind of try to be discreet, leaving a crime scene with a giant instrument.
Exactly. And an instrument at that has no other instrument like it, so you'd have better luck like selling a Stradivarius than you'd have selling this instrument. So so I of course totally panicked, and I just put up like a social media cry out, and I just said like, please, help me if anyone sees the instrument, or is if you see anyone trying to sell it, like please contact me. And I, of course, had no idea if that was going to work or not. And I had a week to go till the recording session. And, I'm thinking to myself, either I just break down crying and try to play a detective for the next few days, or I just try to, figure out something else to do. And I decided that the latter would probably be more productive, just to decide to do something else. And so I just kind of started to brainstorm and think about like what could potentially fit into the sound world, and be a continuation, and like another connective tissue into the story, but not straight too far away from where we already are.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had this kind of vision of having a literal string prison, like a space that you are confined with strings that are kind of keeping you
Mm-hmm.
So that was the first thing that I came up with that I wanted to do. And then as I was kind of researching, I had been researching different cellos and different string instruments, because that's kind of always at the core of my my main interest is to expand the vocabulary of the cello as we know it. And I had come across something that was called a trench cello, that was from the First World War. And that's like the design of it is kind of just like a wooden plywood box, and then you can take the so the strings and the neck and everything is attached to this box, and then you can basically take it all apart and open it up and put all the parts into the box. So
Wow.
you can so basically so the soldiers in the First World War would I think this is probably the English side, they would pack the the strings of the net into this box, and also carry their bullets around in the box. And then they would take it apart, and of course, these soldiers had spent, like, I don't know how much time in the in the front line, in the trenches, and they would play the cello in the trenches, just to as they described it, to bring joy to the most horrific
Yeah.
situation imaginable. And that bringing of joy through these strings just like resonated so strongly with what Arthur's mom used to say to him, or lie to him, that that
Mm.
he was supposed to bring joy with his jokes. And as we did in the first film, he did through the through through these strings, through the cello. So I thought this would be the perfect instrument for him, and also I imagined it sounding kind of like strange, also like the hildurgun. So I called two people that I knew would be kind of crazy enough to join me on this venture. So I had a week to prepare, and those two are Icelandic father and son musicians and the instrument builders. And Hans Johansson, he is a brilliant luthier, and he built my normal cello, and he's
Oh.
unbelievable. So I called him and asked him to build the trench cello, and he said, "Well, okay. I mean, a week, yeah, okay, sure, why not?" So he set up on building that, and then I called his son, who is more like on the experimental side, and I asked him to build me this string prison. So we ended up building this kind of electromagnetic, kind of large scale string instrument that worked kind of like almost like an electric fence, so like
Mm-hmm.
a playable electric fence, and so I would play the trench cello into the string prison to get the string prison to resonate. But the prison part of it was basically, it was exactly like a super hot electric fence. So basically, if you touched it, like you would burn yourself, or you could snap your finger off, like super easily. So it was literally like being imprisoned by strings. And so that kind of, because of this kind of electroacoustic uh, string sound, it kind of connected really well to the sound that we already had. Sorry, I just turned something on here.
Okay.
And so it ended up being just brilliant, I think, in the connection with the other score, because it was kind of, yeah, in the same world, but also something totally different. And
Yeah.
I got to explore something like really completely, unexpected and different, that I had not planned for. But also the extra kind of twist to that story was that the first day of the recording session, I was bitten by a dog while I was getting lunch for everyone. So it was just like this. It
Oh
was
my
like this
God.
this horror story of just like
Good
unexpected
God, Hilda.
events. Yeah. So I was also kind of forced to I was forced to wear a cast for the majority of the recording session, which obviously didn't make for the best of my normal way of playing a cello, because I had this huge cast
Yeah,
on my
restriction.
yeah, exactly, on my right hand. So it ended up just kind of really changing the way that I was playing as well, and what I could physically play, and all of these things. So it was kind of, this score was not made without this,
Yeah.
complication. I kind of overcoming these these events that you would normally just kind of, you know that
Wow.
would normally make you probably stop. But
Y-
I think that's like, it's so interesting. I think, like, within music, because I had this time restriction, so I couldn't really just move the recording session. I mean, it would have just caused so much complications for the whole process. But I just, like, I thought it was such, I always think it's so interesting to just work with where you are,
Yeah.
and not to work from what you expect or how you
Mm.
would ideally want to be working. Or, I think that's one of the most interesting things about creating anything, is that, so many unforeseen things can happen, and things can get, like, so uncomfortable, or you know just so many things can go wrong. And where do you go from there, and not from the perfect situation. So this recording session was such an amazing lesson, and just like, well, okay, this is the situation. What do
Wow.
we do with that? It was like, okay, this is like another, really extreme situation. Where do we go from that? How do we work through this, and what can you create from the clay that you have in your hand
Yeah.
today, and not the clay that you wish that you had. I think
It's
it was
amazing
quite
because
interesting.
it's like creative resilience, but then, in a weird way, it's what you were able to, like find the solution in the situation has fed the creativity of what you've ended up creating. In terms
Exactly. Yeah.
of that, the trench cello and the string prison adds to texture, and what's being created, as well as your restrictions on how you play. It's all fed into the emotion of what you've played and created.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Exactly.
it's such a weird situation. It's go, well done for being burgled and bit by a dog.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not that I would recommend that to anyone.
No,
It was
but
it was a pretty shitty. All of these situations were pretty shitty. But at the end of the day, I look back and I'm like, oh man, I'm kind of happy that happened. Despite the whole like, really uncomfortable, first scenarios. Looking
yeah.
back at it, I was like, well, this was way more fun than if I just, come in with the same instrument again.
Yeah, it's like, hold on, was Todd behind any of this?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, whose dream is this now? Like,
Oh man,
so it
there's
was,
such
yeah,
a
it's really interesting. It was a very interesting working process. This
wow.
whole thing. It was, yeah, it was not straightforward in any way.
Yeah. Oh my god. I mean, that's a film in itself, really, surely.
I know. Everyone in the production were like, okay, well, so what's gonna happen to Hildur today? Like, what? what horror stories are we getting today? So unlucky.
Oh my god. Um,
Yeah.
two things I wanted to talk about, if that's all right, before we finish, was just the kind of
Mhm.
the range of this kind of, it's been so lovely to sit with the album of your music for the last couple of days, and just the range of what's on there. You've got the Saints, and that's a really interesting thing, because that's the first piece of music we hear, is when it's whistled, and then when that old kind of piece of music, when the song The Saints comes in. But your version and your The Saints is fantastic. Then, There Is No Joker, I love that piece. And then the kind of tenderness of The Real You. There's just such a fantastic range of emotions and kind of textures to kind of what's on that score as well. Do you mind? Can we talk a little bit about The Real You, because I just think it's such a, the I really love Arthur. I really
Yeah.
like him, and
Yeah.
and so much of that is through Joaquin's performance, what kind of comes off the screen, but so much of that is connected to your music. But that particular piece, and creating that, and what you were connecting with in terms of that piece.
Yeah. Well, I actually didn't do like a lot of the arrangements are just like a collaboration between lots of parts of my stuff and parts of different arrangers and
Yeah,
so 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 I that the mix of what ended up being in there is just like this collaborative mix of bits and pieces of experimentation, so
yeah,
it's hard to pinpoint that
yeah,
exactly.
yeah. And then with regards to, that first film and reacting to, that we talked about it last time, it was so nice, that kind of almost full circle of, you were sent the script, you reacted to that, you created to that, your connection with the character, that you then fed them music that then informed Joaquin's performance. And I just wondered whether there was I mean, one of my most favorite things to watch in this film is Joaquin tap dancing. I mean, I could just watch that for hours. He's so good.
He
He's
really practiced
so
so
good. I
much.
mean, I
Yeah.
think he needs to be in like a Fred Astaire film. I know that's being made at the minute, but I mean, get him in there. He has got those tap dancing chops.
Yeah, he really
Ah,
practiced. He was like hours and hours and hours and hours. I was kind of a little bit sad that there wasn't more tap dancing because he put so much work into the tap dancing. So yeah, no, I'm pretty happy to hear you say that because I know that that was one of the things he really put a lot of effort into.
I could watch it for hours. And I kind of said that to him. I got the chance to chat to him last week, and he was so great. He was so generous, but he was very funny when I said to him about I could just watch you tap dance. He got so like kind of shy and kind of sort of embarrassed about it. It's like, honestly, it's one of the most brilliant cinematic experiences watching you do that. There's not enough of that on screen. It was just great.
Yeah.
So good.
Oh, I'm so
But did
happy
you
to hear you say
react
that.
to Gaga and Stephanie's performance, in terms of, writing for that character and that relationship and that performance?
Yeah, I think what was really inspiring to me with her performance that kind of seeped into the way that I wrote for her in the score was how she transformed her voice from her normal
Yeah,
singing voice to singing as Lee, and there was like this kind of unlearning of technique, which I thought was really beautiful because, of course, she is. I mean, Lady Gaga is like one of the strongest vocal performers of this, the last decades. Like, I mean, she has an unbelievably strong voice, and it was really beautiful to see her play with unlearning
yeah,
how to sing in her way and just kind of dropping her technique. And I know that that uh, can be really hard for a musician that has trained for so many decades of how to have proper technique. How to unlearn that. What I thought was
mm,
very impressive, and I thought you did that really well. And I
yeah,
thought that that kind of rawness that she managed to bring to her performances, her vocal performances were really quite inspiring as because this is something that I like to play with a lot also in the way that I play cello is to kind of step away from the way that I'm supposed to play,
hmm, yeah,
in brackets and just and tap into just a rawness, that can also be, you know, can also be really beautiful, I think, and how to play with uh, expression in a different way that you normally would express
mm,
yourself like on a string instrument like that, or with the voice as well, there'll be like the vibrato and the presence and like
mm,
how can you be expressive like with thinner tones and no vibrato and but still have expression, that is, I think, a lot of what the score is doing through that same kind of playing with the technique of the string playing, like Arthur's Arthur's way of like how his like you know the bathroom dance or like that kind of
Yeah.
thematic material is played is quite traditionally would be considered like quite ugly playing. Like it's played on an instrument that's not really intended to be played expressively, and it's played with again no vibrato and just very straight. But like you know, how do you find that expression in that? You know, and I think that was one of the ways that. That I used to connect to her
Yeah.
character, you know, because I wasn't really, you know, because obviously when you have so much music in a film, like we had so many songs, so you only have you know that much space for you know that many minutes for actual music, so there wasn't really we didn't really have the bandwidth to like start working into actual
Yeah.
thematic material for her character because you know she was so connected to the song. So I think that's another it's another area where this dance was being kind of played, like you know how much music can we actually like fit
Yeah.
into one story, and how much you know how much of the character development is through the songs and through the score, and where do those lines meet and all
Yeah.
that. So yeah.
It's such a good way to describe it, that kind of dance between those kind of two worlds. And, it's almost, when in a kind of in an old style dance where the partners, they almost kind of sort of twirl them out but twirl them back in. That's almost kind of what the music's doing in a way, in terms of the way that such a kind of effort. I mean, it feels effortless. Clearly there was a lot of work that went into it, but it feels, and I guess that's the whole point, is that we as an audience, we shouldn't be going, oh, that's changed or that's happened. So it feels so effortless, the way that it dances in and out of the songs to your score to back in and stuff. It's just unbelievable, Hilda. It really, really is. It's
Oh,
so
thank
great.
you. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that's also a really good analogy of also just you know needing to you know because there is so much music, it's like where do you give space also that doesn't have music, and you know where do you have that pause of, as you're saying, when you're swirling your dance partner and you're opening the arms, and you also like your dance partner needs a breath to settle after
Yeah.
the swirl.
Yeah.
You know?
Whew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. No,
Oh,
it was super. It was definitely very interesting. You know, and
yeah.
definitely you know I learned a lot in this process, and it was yeah it was definitely a big learning process,
Yeah.
which is again you know the one of the main things that I tried to seek out in the projects that I work on is you know
Mm.
to learn something new and try out something new, and you know
Yeah.
expand my horizon.
Well, you do the same for us as an audience as well. It's so great to chat to you. It really is. I can't thank you enough for your time, and just for kind of taking us on the journey, of your journey on this film as well, which was pretty traumatic at times by the sounds of things. But I'm glad you came out the other side and
Yeah.
with such
Oh, and
the
I must add, I did get the other instrument back. The other instrument
yes,
was returned to me like within the span of a couple of days.
yes.
So
Whew.
all ended well and
Always
all
good.
was good. Yeah,
Yeah.
all was good.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. I'm glad to hear it. I
Yeah.
can't wait to see the film again as well. I'm really excited to go with a group of friends and watch it and have that kind of coming out the cinema and share our experiences and ask questions and all the great things that great cinema does. So, yeah, thank you so much for the experience, Hilda. It's so wonderful to chat to you as always. Really
Oh,
appreciate it.
likewise, and thank you, Edith, for always being so open and excited about new music and new
Oh,
films.
it's the
That's also
best.
that's very inspiring on this end too. Thank you so much for
Thanks,
that.
lovely.